So will Donald Trump be able to save TikTok? Here's my thoughts on it. Quick brief background on how we got where we are. My 4 predictions. So if you're interested in that, it's going to be a low-tech video, not a lot of editing, not a lot of graphics, because it's a timely topic and I just wanted to share and share my thoughts on it. And you're going to hear rain. It's raining where I am, so I'm recording this in front of a video and it's loud. So I am going to try to post-production edit, remove some of that rain so it's not disruptive, but here we go. So just a quick reminder, the reason why we're in a situation where January 19th looks like it would be the end of TikTok is because Donald Trump set in motion the idea of banning TikTok when he was president last term. Yeah, he's flipped the switch since then and reversed course and said he doesn't want to ban it, but we are where we are because of him setting in motion the banning of TikTok. Yeah. So where do we start? Let's start with the beginning. TikTok in 2016 started as a Chinese app called Douyin. It changed its name to TikTok in 2017. Around that same time, it also decided to acquire an American version of the same thing, which is like little short videos where people get their lip sync. I loved Musical.ly, which TikTok acquired in 2017. If you go to my TikTok and go to the very, very, very early stages, you'll see some of my Musical.ly silly videos, which is so fun. So 2018, after it was acquired, there was some bipartisan concern. Bipartisan mean both liberals and conservatives, Republicans and Democrats in the Congress, specifically the Senate. Chuck Schumer, a Democratic senator, and Josh Hawley, a Republican senator, both expressed concern because TikTok was owned by this company called ByteDance. Now, ByteDance is a Chinese company. The reason why they were concerned is because the United States and China, the nation, are adversaries. You probably heard the word allies and adversaries. Allies is when there's another country that we have similar interests, similar forms of government. So we're on the side for the most part with most things and we're all friendly to each other. Then you have adversaries. Adversaries where the country is usually on the other side. Think Russia. And in this case, China has backed Russia, for example, in the Russia-Ukraine war. The United States, you probably know, has backed Ukraine. So when you have two opposing sides, adversaries. Also throughout the history, the Chinese people have been caught and busted trying to spy in America. And equally, I'm certain there are a few Americans that might have been busted over in China looking around because we're competing to be the top global leader. Even right now, recently, Joe Biden went to Africa because China has solidified its hold on Africa. A lot of African nations and the United States feel like we're behind. We need to catch up. So that's the extent to which adversaries were constantly competing. In 2018, the senators were like, this app has got a chokehold on our youth, on so many people. It was growing so big. Its For You page and its algorithms was just so addictive. And we know because a lot of social media platforms are collecting data. So they were like, it's really dangerous for a country that's considered an adversary to have this much data of Americans. So they can use that. So we want to investigate. So they started investigating. Donald Trump heard about this and he also was concerned for various reasons. And so for the first time in 2020, he proposed a ban on TikTok. Donald Trump did. So TikTok responded and said, you know what, instead of banning this, how about we sell our American subsidiary, the data related to America, off to an American company? Would that suffice? Donald Trump was like, sure. So they put off the ban and said, go ahead and work on getting a buyer. At that point, Microsoft had offered to buy TikTok and they started the process of negotiating and working out the terms. So as that was going through, all was good and gravy. In 2021, Donald Trump left office and Joe Biden came into office, and Joe Biden decided to take a different route. He said rather than just go ahead and call for the ban, he reversed Donald Trump's executive order calling for the ban of TikTok. And he said, instead, I'm going to hand it off to this interagency called the Council on Foreign Investments on the United States. It's an interagency made up of people who work at different agencies, and they were going to gather data from TikTok and investigate. And after they're done investigation, they will issue a report and say whether or not they think that TikTok is a national security risk. Now, as they were doing their job, Joe Biden said, you know what, I'm going to wait until they finish the process. So that's where we were in 2021. Until 2022, when news broke, and there was a lot of reports from China, from different intelligence reports showing that ByteDance employees had access to a lot of American data. So that piqued the ears of more senators. Marco Rubio wrote an op-ed. There was more members of the military. All the military branches decided to ban TikTok from use from military devices. A lot of state governments started banning TikTok from use on TikTok on state devices as well, and it just was a groundswell in 2022, and it started getting like a lot. Around the same time, I don't know if you remember this, a lot of Chinese balloons floating up our air. So our intelligence officials, intelligence agents or whatever, were discovering there's a lot of stuff going on, and to have this company that's Chinese have so much data of so many Americans, that has to be a problem. So at that point, around 2023 or so like that, Joe Biden's flipped course and said, you know what, I changed my mind. I think we should ban for national security concerns. And he drafted up a piece of legislation, and the Congress passed the legislation in 2023 calling for the total ban of TikTok unless TikTok were to divest, meaning like sell off portion of itself. So after that happened, so that's where we are. And so TikTok, remember, they initially decided to sell themselves. By the time all of this happened, they said, you know what, we have a big asset. By 2023, around the time they had the ban, TikTok had been downloaded 4.1 billion times. Like in 1 year, they had something like 230 million users. Crazy. And they were like, you know, we're not selling our asset. No, we're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. Even though we're a Chinese company, we know we have some rights. So there was a group of content creators who said that if TikTok were to ban, it's going to violate their First Amendment right. TikTok was a place where they come to connect with their community, to make some money, to share their ideas and get new ideas. There was a conservative group that said similarly that at that time, before X was a thing and before Truth Social was a thing, TikTok was that place where they can get a diversity of viewpoints that are more right-leaning, because they said the other social media platforms were not really great in suppressing their content. TikTok was open for all. And what happened was the court ended up consolidating those different lawsuits from the conservative group, from the group of content creators, and from TikTok into one case. And that's for efficiency's sake. The TikTok, they lost on the district court level, and then they appealed to the Court of Appeals level. And last week they lost as well in that level. And the argument from the TikTok has always been that we're not doing anything. You guys are suspecting and accusing us of things, and you've shown on your documents zero proof that we are sharing American data with the Chinese government. No proof. And also, I mentioned that TikTok had sold itself, was in the process of negotiating with Microsoft. At some point, they did have another partnership with Oracle or another like data centers, so that all the data would be actually housed in the United States, and it would be an American company. And a lot of investors, a lot of people who own shares in TikTok are American. So even though it's Chinese majority owned, there's a lot of Americanness to the app, to the ownership, to the data collection. So all of those things, and TikTok was also saying, we're abiding by all your rules. We're trying our best to abide by your privacy, protection, and children rules. If you've seen a lot of censorship or suppression or actions regarding youth, it's because of that. They're trying to be good, like American-based company, even though they're not American. And United States were like, nope, irrespective of all of that, two things of their concern is that the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, says that there has to be a member of the Chinese government on the board of each private company, and that's the case. And the issue with that is that as the board makes its decision, Chinese government hears all of that because they have a member on the board. So that's the concern. And the second concern is that Chinese government also passed a law between the middle of all of this that said that if you were to sell an asset, sell off a private company in China or to sell off asset, it needs to get approval from the government. So to kind of make the point, like, hello, we're trying to say you're beholden to the Chinese government. Y'all say, no, we're not. No, we're not. While there's a board member sitting there and you can't even sell off anything without their approval. So yeah, we're not buying it, China. We're not buying it. And so, yeah, they're not buying it, and it's not looking good. So that's where we are. The Court of Appeals said, based on the national security concerns I mentioned before, and all of the data, it trumps the First Amendment concerns, it trumps all the arguments that TikTok said about the United States not having any real evidence or proof of them doing anything. It trumps everything they're saying about, you know, we have resources in America and we have American investors. All that things are like, yeah. All that matters to us is that the national security concerns are just supersedes anything else you said in your arguments. That's what it is. And so it brings me to my predictions. So here are my predictions on how this is going to pan out. TikTok has said that they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court is going to deny certiorari, meaning like not take it. Why? As I said before in these videos, I'm not quite sure if I said it on this channel, but the Supreme Court doesn't take every case. We know the cases. They take a handful of cases that percolate appeal from the other courts below up. There's very few times when the Supreme Court were intervene on the first instance. If there's like something with a treaty, with a conflict between states, with high-level ambassadors, foreign stuff, that's not this case here. But luckily, it did percolate to the top. So it is something that's right for the Supreme Court to consider. And I'm not quite sure if the time has passed, and TikTok has said, well, while we wait and appeal to the Supreme Court, can you actually stay, meaning like stop the execution of us being removed from the App Store? That hasn't been granted or not yet, but I think that all of the companies, everybody is preparing for it not being gone. And by being gone, meaning that it's removed from the App Store, meaning no further updates. Like, while you'll be able to access it, at some point it's going to be rendered inoperable because as updates no longer become, you can't update anymore. It just starts being functional. So TikTok has said, can we appeal that? I think that the Supreme Court's going to swiftly deny certiorari, meaning that the Court of Appeals below would stay, meaning the national security concerns trump. And so TikTok's going to be forced to receive or start seriously considering offers put place between, I think, maybe 2 to 4 investment groups that have already started. Like, this has been going on. They've been talking about divesting TikTok since like 2022, 23. So people have been putting together plans. And also remember, TikTok was considering selling to Microsoft. So all of those terms and things like that still out there. And also they've also sold assets. Well, they've also contracted to have their data centers being managed by American companies. So the framework for how this would work is kind of like they're already together. They just need to piece together a good deal. So I think TikTok is going to consider offers from different people. And it's not going to be, as I said before, it's not going to be Mark Zuckerberg, Meta. It's not going to be X because, like I've said before, in the United States, we don't like monopolies. While monopolies exist, the only monopolies that exist are natural monopolies that have existed for years. And that's for like utilities, oil, water, gas, electricity, cable, telecom. Essentially, as I said before, whoever came into a specific town to dig up the road, put in the trenches, lay down the pipe, the coaxial pipe and the fiber optics, and that's a lot of infrastructure investment. So they served. Most competitors are not going to come in because there's too much of investment for the return on investment. So most people just don't even compete. So there's really just one. And because of that, and the government knows that residents have nowhere else to go, the government does what's called regulating. They require, before they raise the price, they have to actually submit the proposals to the government. And the government tells them how many customer service offices they have to have, how many options they have to have, and and they have to report a lot. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of reporting, a lot of record keeping. It's burdensome. It's a lot of burden because they're making a lot of money and people have nowhere else to go. And so that's how we protect residents in the United States. For everyone else, we say, do as you please. We have what's called laissez-faire. It's a capitalist society because we figured the market would decide. And I've said this example before. There's 2 pieces of shops opposite side, and 1 piece of shop is offering like free pizza pies on Wednesdays and 25% off pies on Fridays and free drinks on Tuesdays. The other piece of shop, if you're making the same pizza, are going to probably do the same. The price is going to be comparable because why would someone buy a $7 pizza and then get a $3 pizza across the street? And they're comparable for the most part. So the marketplace determines price, consumer options, innovation, and things like that in the United States. However, United States will stop monopolies if they see them being developed. For example, recently, Kroger tried to buy Albertson or something like that. 2 grocery store chains in the South try to consolidate, and the Department of Justice says, no, we will not let that happen. And that's happened throughout the years. Like 2 companies try to merge, they have to first get it approved by the Department of Justice. If the Department of Justice sees there's too much market consolidation, too much where one company is going to own too much and it's turning into a monopoly, they will reject that merger. So Meta owns WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. That's like a lion's share of the social media. And then Elon Musk, X, no matter what you say, it's a behemoth. Those 2 automatically disqualified, as is like Snap, as is anyone else. There's only but so many social media platforms. So all those big guys can't acquire. It's going to be an investment group. And as I said before, the example of this is with a Grindr, which is an app that's Chinese owned, that was starting the same process. And the United States Council on Foreign Investment started its investigation. And Grindr, rather than wait through the whole process, they were like, forget about it, we'll just sell. They sold the app to an American investment company. So I'm figuring it's the same thing that's going to happen. And I think because TikTok was concerned about its algorithms and they don't want their algorithms to get in the hands of like Elon or Mark. And even though Elon and Mark can't technically buy it, they're powerful. Like, they can, if they want to, using different ways and means and sub companies and resource access, they can try to get their hands on it. So I think in order to protect their algorithms, which is their secret sauce, what's going to happen is TikTok is going to condition the sale on a 50% ownership of the algorithms, and that's going to allow they won't need approval from China because they're not selling it technically, they're just partnering. And also that should alleviate concerns from the about someone else, American company, getting access to it, because that 50% ownership will probably say that it's going to be on lock and key. You can't do anything without us knowing it, and we're not going to let you have access to it. And also, in order to ensure the smooth running of the app, we're going to keep it running. So part of the agreement was like, we'll keep it running, weave in the Americans as possible, but we'll just take their data. As the data is already in those other data centers, you'll just own the data in those data centers. It's already running with the data over there anyway. It's just that the American company is going to own that data. The algorithms will be 50% owned, part of the way the system works, but it won't be owned by the American company. It won't be necessarily owned by TikTok. And so that's what's going to save it, I think. So that's my prediction. I think that's what's going to happen. It may not happen, but that's my prediction. I want to put that out there. The Supreme Court's going to deny certiorari. They're going to get bids from a couple of investment groups. They're going to keep one, and it's going to be conditioned on the algorithms being 50% owned. And also, so that's my prediction. We'll see if it comes through. Like I've said before, I've done this before. Just to tell my credentials, people always questioning that. I really don't care, but just so you know, I have 2 law degrees. I have a certificate of communications law degree. I have a certificate of communications, law. I have a Juris Doctor law degree. I have a master's of law in advocacy. I have worked in the FCC. I have been part of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. I helped lobby to get some portions of that. And I was active before that act went into play with the FTC and the FCC. I've lobbied the FCC. I have been active with a lot of members of Congress and legislation related to protection. So in regulatory and in the telecom and regulatory industry. So I've been deeply entrenched in this stuff. I know this stuff really, really well. I know the Communications Act, the Communications Decency Act. I know the Safe Harbor Act. I know it really, 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 really super, super well. So that's my experience, and that's where it's coming from. This prediction is based on my knowledge, not me just saying off the top of my head. But I just want to throw that out there because a lot of times folks will be like, how do you know? I mean, I don't get the benefit of the doubt of being educated in this area. A lot of times people see me, and based on what I look like, they just assume I don't know what I'm talking about. I get it all the time. I'm used to it by now. Life in America, life in the world, I think, whatever. So anyway, so that's what it is. I just want to put that out there. And again, like I said, low tech, low thing video. What do you think? Let's talk below. I think that's it. All right. So you watched this far. Thank you. God bless. It's almost like a 20-minute video. This got slow. Bye. Okay. You want more of this? I have more like how the internet works. I'm going to put a playlist there on how the internet works. Other stuff here.